And we're sitting here with Chief Carl Horn from the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. Of course, we've been discussing the Combined School Committee issue. It's been an ongoing issue for the last 7-8 months. Carl, one of the biggest things I'd like to talk to you about today is why you decided to vote no. I mean, it's pretty much out there, but if you could just let the community know what happened that day.
Like you were saying, this is an ongoing issue for the last 6-7 months. The reason why I voted no, it had nothing to do with the education situation per se, but the overall prospect of overturning or getting involved with a volunteer committee in our community. I feel that the council has no business getting involved in a volunteer committee, especially the education, where we're talking decades ago was formed by the parents of the community without any involvement with the council whatsoever. Now this decision just exposes every other volunteer committee in our community. I understand that there's issues in regards to education. Some were brought forward by council chiefs, and my personal feeling was it should have been handled by the parents and the combined school committee itself without having council get involved. So that's why I felt that for our role as council chief was to more or less to observe and only get involved if we had to.
Up until this point, when you guys decided to make a vote, up until that point, that day, how much complaints or how big of an issue was this at the council table since the original firing of former Director of Education, Stana Lahash?
It was brought forward by the portfolio chiefs. They brought verbal complaints. There was emails and letters sent to council chiefs on the portfolio, and I had never seen any of them. I was only given a summary of what these complaints had stated, but to me that's beside the point. Whether it be 1 complaint or 5 complaints or 10 complaints, that should have been handled by the Combined Schools Committee. Those complaints should have been forwarded to the Combined Schools Committee and let them handle it.
Right.
I understand there were complaints towards the Combined Schools Committee, then the parents should have handled it within themselves. To me, and this is only my opinion, but I think the council wanted the power to oversee the entire education system. That's only my opinion, but I believe that individuals sitting at the table wanted the power or the say over the education system, which is wrong because you know, that belongs to the parents. I'm getting more and more a history on it, and it was started by a few women in the community as well as some men, and to me that was the only thing that was left that the people had a say on. Now that was taken away.
Right.
And I have a problem with that because, like I said, this exposes any other volunteer committee and board in our community where they could be sitting there coming up with a decision. If the council table doesn't like it, we're going to overturn it, whether you like it or not. And that just takes away the voice of the people.
Some people say that they feel that this is, you know, overall about money, and it's gotten very personal. And I mean, a chief that's been sitting on at the tables, you know, since it first started. What is your opinion on that?
My opinion, I don't think it has anything to do with money because that was never discussed in my presence at the council table. If it was, believe me, I would relay that to the community. But my honest opinion on the issue is, I think the council still has sour grapes over the casino issue. I think it didn't go their way, and the individuals that were vocal against the project are the same, to me, are almost the same group of individuals that are in favor of the Combined Schools Committee. Obviously, a large majority of them are traditional people, but I mean, they're still community members. They have a voice in our community, regardless of if they vote or not. Because I think, again, my own opinion, that the decision was made based on that, well, doesn't matter. A lot of those people don't vote anyway. And I have a problem with that because there are individuals too in our community and they have a voice, and their concerns should be respected.
Some of your fellow chiefs that sit with you on the council will say, well, how could he say he didn't really see any complaints or hear about it when we all did? What do you say to that?
Well, I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but no complaints in writing were ever given to me, which was requested not only by myself, but the Grand Chief at the time before this decision was made. And he can answer for that himself. But I specifically remember him asking, we need some documentation to back up this decision that we're going to make. There was no documentation that was ever shown to council before this decision was made.
Only after?
Only after.
Okay, so now there's a file folder now that the decision has been made?
I assume over the next week or so that those documents are going to be released to the community.
Shouldn't that have been done beforehand?
Which should have been done before, my honest opinion. And, you know, there was an individual on the Combined Schools Committee that owned up to a mistake that she had made. Whether that happens in this case with some of the members of council, that's to remain to be seen. You know what I mean?
Do you think that you guys were ready to make that decision without having proper documentation beforehand, including some of the new chiefs that were on council that didn't maybe have all of the information?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of the 4 new chiefs. You're going to have to ask them that question yourself. But if I was in their shoes, which I was last term, to be faced with this type of a decision that's going to affect a large portion of the community, I personally would have abstained and stepped aside and say, listen, 2-3 weeks or into our new term, and to make a decision of that magnitude with so little information, like I said, I would have abstained.
Well, you know, the Mohawk Council has gotten a lot of slack regarding not showing up to meetings. But you and another council chief, Gina Deere, were the only 2 there at the last week's meeting. Now, at that meeting, she did speak. Now, I believe you had already left, but she did get up and she was questioned by various community members. And she did admit at that meeting that she didn't have all of the information. She said, you know, I didn't have all the information. I do have a file folder now at that meeting that had several complaints in it. But she did come out and say, well, I didn't have all the, you know, information. And she was really criticized. She has been criticized along with the rest of council for not having all of that information. But still, she did come forward and she tried to be there and present and be honest. Yeah, you know, so.
My opinion on that is, and this is no disrespect to the 4 council chiefs, I think they were used. They were vulnerable because this decision was talked about and almost done prior to the July election. And I feel, and I'm sure I'm going to get criticized from individuals at the council table, which it doesn't bother me at all, but I feel, in my opinion, is that they knew that 2 new chiefs were coming in, possibly a minimum of 2 new chiefs, being that John D. and Johnny Montour were not running again.
Okay. And
that there was a possibility that more chiefs, new chiefs, will be there. So I think they want to see who the makeup of the table, and then spring this type of decision on their lap. And I feel bad for the new chiefs. I mean, because they were put in a position where, you know, they don't want to make any rumblings or waves at the table because they're new. And on the other hand, they didn't have enough information to make a decision of this magnitude, you know?
Okay, we're going to wrap it up, but Carl, thanks for coming. Is there anything else you feel is important to add before we
I just want to make sure the community understands my position on the issue. I'm not against the fact that these complaints that have come in that shouldn't be heard. I understand that they should be. The reason why I didn't want to get involved with suspending them is because that voice belongs to the parents. That voice belongs to the people. That voice belongs to our community members. They're in charge of handling their own affairs. Council has no business getting involved. And this just exposes any other volunteer committee in our community, regardless of the issue, if council's not happy with, let's just say, if the portfolio chief's not happy with the decision that that particular committee made, then the council can just step in and say, you know what, we're the governing body of the day. We're gonna push our weight around, and we're gonna say the way it's gonna be, which is wrong because each individual council member sitting there works for the people. It's not the other way around where the people work for us.
Okay. All right, Carl, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
No
and
problem.
now we're going to go to a quick interview with Jessica Deere, who's been helping out and researching a lot in this story. We have several other chiefs from the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake that have been interviewed on this same issue. So we're going to go to a story with Jessica Deere and Chief Kasanahaway Sky Deere and Kenneth McCumber. I'm sitting with Education Portfolio Chiefs Kasanahaway Sky Deere and Kenneth McCumber at the MCK. Okay, so this whole education stuff has gotten a little bit more complicated in the past few months. Can you tell me, I guess, the decision that Chief and Council made to suspend the Kahnawake Combined Schools Committee?
Well, really what we did was we suspended the powers right now based on the last 8 months and the various complaints that we received, the amount of confusion with regard to there being multiple constitutions, the parents trying to exercise their authority. They felt like they weren't being answered to with regard to the whole Donald Hash issue. They wanted an independent investigation from January. There was requests from the administrators, from the education center staff. We got a petition from parents. Everybody wanted to know, how did this happen? How did it come to this, where the director of education in the middle of a school year is terminated, or her probationary period is terminated. And it just kept, I don't know, month after month, it seemed like there was no resolve to the issue. And then it just kept escalating. So there was about 3 attempts anyways for the parents to suspend the combined school committee, if you want to.
And this was, it was constant with emails and phone calls. It was ongoing. And people were, were not comfortable. And all the while with the MCK, we were hoping that they could resolve this issue. It never got to that point. It got progressively worse as time went on. And then in the end, they, the final part was they were just so frustrated, and without being any answers being given as to what was going on. And it got to the point where they said, now finally we had to step in to try and help. Like I said, it was not easy. I mean, we weren't comfortable. We wanted it to be solved, but it didn't. It just got worse. So we had to do something.
In one of the statements that the Combined Schools Committee released, they had said that, I guess, the actions of the MCK were based upon 17 to 20 disgruntled parents and staff. So would you be able to, I guess, elaborate on these complaints? Because I think since the suspension, they have been really vague about what did the Combined Schools Committee do and what have parents been complaining about.
Right, and understandably that council hasn't released a fact sheet or anything, because if you look at the file and what consists of this since January is quite lengthy to go through in terms of complaints, petitions, press releases, basically giving a whole story of how this all transpired since January. The entire council had access to this file. All of the information is there. There have been petitions. Like I said, we received a petition at a community meeting in February that was signed by 34 parents saying that they didn't, here I'll even read exactly what it said. Council receives a petition at the winter community meeting signed by 34 community members, parents asking the MCK to conduct an inquiry into the termination of Ms. Lahash. They cite that they do not believe the KCSC acted in good faith, that they will not listen to the parents, and that they want an investigation done by an independent body. They ask for the KCSC to be dismissed until further notice, as they believe the termination was done prematurely and in haste. So they weren't happy with that. So then we received the petition that was in April, and I believe it was signed by 26 parents. But they were told at that point, whoever was going around with the petition, to stop, to cease what they were doing. So that, again, we felt like...
Has there been any, I guess, like, content in these complaints that have, I guess, stemmed not necessarily regarding determination of Donna Lahash?
Yeah, there was some about their eligibility to even be in office as the combined school committee. That one came in July, and it questioned about, okay, you have the composition of the combined is 2 Garinuha, 2 Cattery, and 2 KSS reps. But the other 4 general seats says that it is from any other school system. So there's a misinterpretation in the Constitution, because for the longest time it was of the opinion that that's for parents of children, for seats of parents whose kids attend schools on the outside. And 2 of the current members don't have that sit in general seats. Their kids attend KSS, so there's like 4 KSS seats. And then as well, there was questions about the eligibility of the chair, because she supposedly replaced a member who couldn't fulfill their 3-year mandate. So when that happens, your term is only up until the end of their term. And so therefore, her seat expired in April of 2011. And she continues to be an active participant now, and her term has already been expired for over a year.
So I guess, what has happened since the suspension? Like, what's been the plan?
Well, it's a plan for 90 days that the interim group will go out and they're doing an assessment and going at different areas, and also dealing, going to the schools, meeting one with finance and dealing with the administration at the same time, and they're just putting a plan together as to what's going to happen.
And the board of trustees consists of?
There was Irina Sky Daibo, Franklin Williams, and Mike Daibo, as well as the 3 principals, Arlene Goodleaf, Ganaso Hundir, and Joyce Daibo.
Now, there was a letter in the Eastern Door recently from the, I guess, a steering committee that was set up by parents who were, I guess, in support of the Combined Schools Committee. And they had outlined, I guess, a concern over you being a conflict of interest. Like, do you believe you're a conflict of interest? And
well,
the whole thing's related.
The May 15th meeting, when the parents had tried to suspend the Combined School Committee, and again it was said that it wasn't a duly convened meeting and that the Combined School Committee wasn't invited to attend, there was a resolution that was signed, and the parents at that meeting had selected 3 community members to be the interim board of trustees, and at that time they selected Alex McCumber, Mike Daibo, and Rena Sky. So when council decided to suspend the powers of the current Combined School Committee and put in an interim board of trustees, we went back to who they originally had trusted.
Since the suspension, there's been several parents' meetings where there's, around like 200 parents who are, I guess, upset with the decision. They came here and had a petition or read a letter to Chief and Council, and they're clearly like unhappy with the decision.
Well, to me, like I said,
the way it goes, the thing is, like I said, going into this, we're well aware of everything and possibilities, what could happen, and people are not going to be happy. Well, we have to look at overall. This is what we're here for, and sometimes decisions have to be made, and it's not always popular, but we have to do it.
And it needs to be reiterated that this is not a MCK takeover. Council does not want to take over education. We've seen that there was confusion, that there was 3 different constitutions. The parents weren't able to exercise their authority. There were so many instances where there was a major breakdown in governance, and ultimately council is responsible for the finances in this community and for the governing boards, even though we're arm's length. But when we see that things aren't working appropriately and people are coming to us saying do something, ultimately that's our job.
We have to.
And I think in terms of moving forward, could there be some compromise? I think so. In terms of, a portion of parents in the community that were upset, that were attending meetings from January up until, maybe June, thereabout, they got what they wanted. They wanted the powers of the combined school committee to be suspended until all of this could be reviewed. And then once a decision was made, now you have another group of parents that are angry and saying, you know, who are you, council, to get involved, because, you know, this has been in effect since 1968 and the community came together. Well, I'm of the opinion that it's still a matter of the community coming together, because we are so divided, and education is something that is going to affect everybody in this community, and everybody has a vested interest and stake in this. So in terms of, you know, maybe the ad hoc committee that the other parents group has selected, if maybe there could be some kind of working relationship with the interim board of trustees that we mandated, something, because I'm willing to look at anything. You know, the last thing I want people to think is that council is a dictatorship and this is the way it's going to be, and shove it down people's throats, and too bad. You know, the intent is for eventually the powers to go back into the hands of the parents, and for there to be another election, and for the in-school committees to continue to run. But I have to hammer that home, that we just want things to go smoothly and run accordingly, and it seemed like it wasn't working.
Do you have an idea when, I guess, like kind of like a fact sheet of like all these complaints will be released?
And this week, it has to be this week. We know that the meeting there's another meeting taking place this Wednesday, which is September the 12th at Garinoha School. And again, it's with the parents that are angry with the decision of council and those that support the combined school committee. So we feel that time is of the essence now. And like I said, it was very lengthy in terms of composing a timeline and a fact sheet for someone who hasn't been a part of the issue, is, you know, that could pick up everything and read page by page all of the documented incidences and a factual timeline of why council did what we did, and what is the intent to move forward.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, but if you have anything else to add, feel free.
Well, I just hope that people in the community will participate actively when it comes time for the comprehensive consultation. We have tasked the interim board of trustees to approach various people in the community, parents, everybody, to see, again, like, what is your opinion, what's your take on how the Constitution is now. And, you know, everybody's going to have an opportunity to have their say. Like I said, we're not taking away the voice of the parents. We're looking at where the confusion, the shortfalls, and trying to tighten it up so that in the future we will never be in this kind of predicament again.
Yeah, because a lot of us were caught off guard. I mean, it doesn't happen every day. Usually education is stability. But also, if you take a look at the composition of the interim board, they're all reputable people from the community. You know, they are doing this. The MCK is not doing that. So, you know, to keep in mind that it's for education, it's for the children, it's for the future. So this is the outcome that we expect to get from it, and I have full confidence in them that we will achieve this.
All right, thank you very much to the two of you for letting me interview you.
Okay, yeah, well.
And over the next couple of weeks, Mohawk TV will continue to cover this story as it develops. We have also extended an invitation to the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake and the current Board of Trustees to come in studio and answer some questions regarding this issue. Hopefully in the future, we will soon be taping together. Until then, thank you for tuning in. And of course, if you have any comments or questions regarding today's program, don't be afraid to contact us here on our news line, 450-632-6397, or send us an email at mohawktv@hotmail.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Regan Jacobs, and you're watching Our Town.
Kanya ke haga thadi adaraste kayerniga hiadu zewaderoru.